Just posted on Facebook this morning this wonderful little quote. It said, "Good morning. I love you. You're beautiful. Nice butt." So I laughed out loud when I saw that. And I realized further down on Facebook there was an Irish proverb that said a good night's sleep and a good laugh are the two best cures for everything. I had both. So there you go. I got both. As we begin the 6 months of our year of spiritual practice, as is our theme for this year, bless you, the focus for June is on journaling. And it's been a personal practice of mine for many, many years. As long as I can remember, I have journaled. And the title for the talk today, as Diane alluded to, is Slowing Down to the Speed of Writing. How many of us actually sit down and handwrite anything anymore? With computers, thank you, yes. Some of you actually send me notes, handwritten notes, and you can't imagine how delightful it is to open the mail and to find a wonderful handwritten note. Thank you, Virginia Mellets. She's one of them, but I know that for me, handwriting is such a, I love pens, I love notebooks, I love anything to do with writing of any kind. And what it means, slowing down to the speed of writing, is that when I'm stymied about something in my life, or I just need to ventilate sometimes, writing is what I do. And for most of us, the blocks to our progress in life come about because we're analyzing or intellectualizing the problem. And what journaling does is allows for the problem or the neurolinguistics of a handwriting to get us from the head to the heart through the hand. And all our problems are generated in the intellect and solved in the heart. It's a very important aspect of who we are. Years ago, I read Natalie Goldberg's book called Writing Down the Bones. If any of you haven't read that book, it's a wonderful book as a starter idea for someone who would like to be a writer. And she suggested that if we filled one of those speckled little notebooks that come out at the beginning of the school year, notebooks that I grew up, because in Canada we learned the Maclean's method of handwriting, and those notebooks were used specifically for that. She said if we fill out one of those speckled notebooks each month, we had serious intentions of being a professional writer. Well, I never filled out one a month, but I probably have 30 or 40 of those notebooks filled with what I perceived to be brilliance at the time that I wrote it. And of course, my children are going to have fun reading them whenever I leave this plane of consciousness. But I thought to myself as I was going through them, I have everyone seems to have a book in their heart, right? And I hear so many times, and particularly Les Brown is an advocate of having people in his classes write their books, you know, that we don't want to die with our songs still in us or our stories still in us. But contrary to what most people use journals for, my writing was always sort of forward thinking in its approach. And rarely did I write about my angst because I didn't want to give it any permanence in my life. So I would always sort of write about what the solution was rather than what the problem was. If I felt that way, I generally talked it through with a practitioner or a minister or a good friend, someone that I could trust. Writing helped me to stop long enough to get centered in truth, to see the light of God in whatever was going on, and then to come to resolution about the situation. I discovered in my writing that I had core beliefs about certain things that no longer served me. Early on, after leaving sort of the insular life of a very small town in Canada and moving first to Spokane to go to school and then to San Francisco, there were many challenges from small town thinking to big city thinking, as you might imagine. I came to San Francisco in the 60s, and I was very confused about what? I was very confused about the segregation and integration thing, because we didn't have that in Canada. And I thought, this is just the strangest thing. So I worked toward investigating what that was all about. And I even have the distinction of marching with Angela Davis in the 60s for peace. Not against the war, but for peace. I had an afro and my business suit. You know, I was sort of mixed up during that period of time, as many of us were. There is a phenomenon called cognitive dissonance, originally coined by Frantz Fanon, who was a Martinique-born Afro-French psychiatrist, philosopher, revolutionary writer, who emigrated to New York in the 50s. And he actually only lived until he was 36 years old, but he was a prolific writer. And while he was talking about his experience of racial prejudice as a core belief, I think the idea of cognitive dissonance works well with any limited or limiting idea that we might have about anything. Sometimes we have a core belief that is very strong and very deeply subjectified. And when we're presented with evidence that is contrary to that core belief, the new evidence cannot be accepted sometimes, and it creates a feeling that's extremely uncomfortable. It is called cognitive dissonance, and because it is so important to protect our core belief, we will rationalize, deny, and even ignore anything that doesn't fit with that core belief. Now, I have had that experience myself. I only talk about myself when I get up here on Sunday mornings. And those feelings that I have are, in fact, so uncomfortable some of the time that for some of us, even affirmative prayer or spiritual mind treatment does not seem to counteract the situation. That core belief is so entrenched in us that we have a really difficult time allowing it to emerge so that we can shine a more conscious light upon it. We have a core belief that money doesn't grow on trees, only the rich get richer, or the economy is causing this, that, or the other thing. That's a core belief. We have a core belief that all relationships end in divorce, or women are gold diggers, or men are jerks, or we are not lovable. That's a core belief that some people have. We have a core belief that our family history dictates our health challenges, and that no one in our family ever lived beyond 70, or we have to be sick in order to leave from this plane of our experience. We have a core belief that we can never progress beyond a certain pay grade in our employment, or if we leave our current job, there won't be another one on the horizon, or the unemployment rate is high, therefore I won't be able to find a job when I graduate. All those are core beliefs. Have I covered everything for everybody? Yes? Good. Okay. These are core beliefs that are lies, and they're making us sick at some very deep level. Bruce Lipton wrote in his book, The Biology of Belief, the moment we change our perception is the moment we rewrite the chemistry of our bodies. It's simple. It's that simple. And it's so difficult at the same time, is it not? If we have a core belief about something that is so firmly subjectified, it is so difficult for some of us to bring it up, to even shine a conscious light upon it. If I have a limiting core belief that is stronger than my desire to affect change in my life, then I will remain in the problem until such time as the pain becomes so great, the only thing I have left to do is change. Remember the famous Anais Nin quote, and the day came when the risk to remain tight in the bud was greater than the risk it took to blossom. So, journaling is an integral part of getting us to those deeply, deeply subjectified core beliefs. There is something so spiritual about sitting in the quiet of the early morning with the birds chirping and the wind barely blowing and the solitude of one's own thoughts. It's quite amazing, and that idea of handwriting something, it is so pivotal in its proportion because there's something almost like automatic writing that takes over. And there's something that comes up for me that I know is the answer to everything that is really deeply embedded in me. I'm not suggesting that journaling is the only way to get to the core beliefs that no longer serve us, but it is one way to do it. Last week, Michael J. Fox was on The View. Barbara Walters is leaving the show, and Michael J. Fox was one of the first guests on the show when it first started many years ago. And as some of you may or may not know, Michael was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease several years ago, and yet he continues to act. And in fact, he currently has a recurring role on The Good Wife. He had what he called an error belief. He actually used those words. And I say a core belief about Parkinson's disease before he was diagnosed with it. And he has since changed his mind about it and become an advocate for finding a cure for the disease. Celebrities using their celebrity or their notoriety to do things like this is a really good thing. He said on the show, you can't find a cure until you know the cause. That sounds like science of mind to me. Sounds like science of mind. Ernest Holmes said that life is an adventure in which we never know what is going to happen just beyond the turn of the road. But too often our today is filled with regrets over the past. If we could convince ourselves that the limitations of the past need not be carried into the future, what a happy outlook we would have. I love Ernest. I do love Ernest. Michael J. Fox did just that with his life. He overrode the belief that someone with this disease could lead a productive life, and he set out to prove his point in no uncertain terms. I mean, he's like a hero as far as I'm concerned. He's just an amazing guy. Jesus even told us that the mistakes of yesterday can be canceled, and that changes do not require months and months of strenuous efforts. Like Michael J. Fox said, we cannot find a new belief until we know what caused the old belief. And if our journaling a few minutes a day would offer insights into what that was, wouldn't this then be a worthwhile spiritual practice on a daily basis? It would, wouldn't it? Joseph Campbell said, we must be willing to let go of the life we planned in order to have the life that is waiting for us. And maybe if just this one idea of journaling on a daily basis, along with meditation and along with doing our spiritual mind treatment, would create something new for us, would give us a changed life experience, oh my goodness, I can't imagine what kind of life could be waiting for us. Who knows? Perhaps the writing we do in our journal is the messy stuff of life. That's a possibility too. But as Robin Roberts pointed out this week in her book, she said, make your mess your message. Make your mess your message, which is exactly what she did. Those of us who have moved out of the mess to the message through our journaling could have a bestseller on our hands like Robin Roberts did. And our journey of self-discovery could be the catalyst for somebody else to heal their error beliefs and come to know God in a bigger and better way. I just think it's monumental that there are people here, sitting here today, who have a story to tell that is going to move somebody else in this lifetime into their own personal self-discovery. And if we die with that story in us, or we die with that song in us, as we might if we were musicians, what's the point? The point is to share the wealth of knowledge that we've discovered from this teaching. Ernest is clear that we cannot go back over the past and relive it. That's not what we're trying to do here. We cannot make adjustments in the past. We have to make them in the present moment. We don't have to sit around and bemoan what happened to us before we understood that life happens through us. Nothing happens to us. because that just sets us up for creating a tomorrow with the very same misery filled with monotonous repetitions of our yesterdays. Yes. So, today being the first day of June, we can, as Ernest says, cut loose from the threads of our previous experiences, wherever they were negative, and deliberately make up our minds that we will no longer create our future out of a past that no longer serves us. That's a decision we get to make today. This is the first day of the rest of our life. I know that's a silly platitude, but it's actually the truth. Ernest suggests that we arrive at some practical way, and I interject journaling here, some definite and concrete method, and deliberately use the law of good to change what was to what can be and what is yet to be. What is yet to be? That evokes such an idea of so much promise in all of us. What is yet to be in my life? As my beloved friend Bob Luckin said this morning in his post on Facebook, God lives in a single breath, a heartbeat, and the morning sunrise. God dances in every step we take. God smiles in every sunset and walks with us as we dream. God speaks to us in thunder and sings to us from the treetop dressed in feathers. God thinks in the vast mind we have opened, and through love that traces every vein. I love me some Bob Luckin, I do. I keep telling everybody, friend him on Facebook, he's just brilliant. We get that through the introspection of journaling, and it moves us from what was to what is possible as we live in the eternal presence of Spirit, as Ernest Holmes calls it, whose whole purpose is good, whose desire is constructive, and whose whole feeling toward us is one of love and compassion. That's the God that I understand today. That's the God that I discovered when I came to the Science of Mind all those years ago. A God of love and compassion. Not that judgmental, white-bearded guy in the sky who says, you know what, Cal, you've been a bad guy. You know, I'm going to punish you. But you know what, Bob, you've been pretty darn good in life, so you're going to get something really wonderful. There is none of that going on with the God of my understanding today. The God of my understanding simply says yes to everything that I desire, as long as it hurts no other person. It might not seem possible that such a simple thing as journaling could produce such dynamic results in our lives, but take it from me, it changes everything. The cognitive dissonance is no longer, and there is a beautiful inner knowing that takes place. You know, that neurolinguistic thing, moving that great grand journey, that 18 inches from the head to the heart, is sometimes the most difficult journey that we have to take in life. But it's a journey worth taking. If you try it, it will produce results, because the most wonderful part of this whole exercise is that we don't have to change anything about ourselves. We just have to be who we are, genuinely perfect, the way God made us to be, in the truth of who we are, that God is all there is, and also that knowing that with God, all things are possible. Will you join me in consciousness, please? And so, as always, today I go to that perfect place of peace, where there is no such thing as cognitive dissonance. And I engage with that pure essence of Spirit. I engage fully and completely in the innermost part of my being, where I know that the truth is that God is all there is, that there is nothing in my life that cannot be handled or adjusted or amended through this idea that that pure essence of Spirit is who and what I am. And so I know today that as I move out of the hubbub of the world of effect, and I surrender everything and anything that might have created any kind of stress or anxiety in my life, I move into that third kingdom consciousness where I have absolute and total acceptance for my life. And as I accept my life the way it is today, the greater yet to be is not only a possibility, but a probability. I know that the greater yet to be of my life is what I came here to experience. I came here to make a difference. And as I speak this truth in the first person today for all here present, the I am and the I have and the I can becomes my reality. When I step aside from the core beliefs that no longer serve me, I move into a greater idea of what it is that I know I am meant to be on this plane of consciousness, that I am meant to be here to do something, to be something, and to have something of incredible value. And that value is simply being me. Don't have to do anything, don't have to change anything, don't have to fix anything. Because God so loved itself that it created me in its image and likeness, I know that is enough, because I am enough. I am God's means to be. And so I get to figure out how that plays into life. I get to figure out today how my being here makes a difference. I get to figure out what it is that I want to do to prove that I have made a footprint on this planet Earth. And I fully and completely realize that whatever it is, that my efforts end up on the credit column of the planet's ledgers. And so I know today, for each and every one of us, that the moment at which we decide to be the best we can be is that moment in truth where the universe conspires to make that happen. And so it is today from this place in consciousness that I joyfully receive and give thanks for this opportunity to be me, to be here, to be in the now, and to know that my life makes a difference, as we say together, and so it is.